Good morning. I am in a mood for philosophy. As I was looking through several of my texts, it is the Christmas season right now. I found a selection out of Alan Watts, The Two Hands of God, The Myth of Polarity, Legends of Light and Darkness, Life and Death, Good and Evil, Self, Not Self, Known, Unknown, Knower Known, from the art and literature of the Chinese, the Indian, the Egyptian, Iranian, and early Christian civilizations, revealing the mystical unity that binds opposite forces together. Now, that's quite a title for a book. And he delivers. So, this is perhaps the deepest, most profound blasphemy from one point of view that one can present. Yet it is also the most spiritually eye opening, saving doctrine available from another sense. So I will let you decide which way you look at it. And the paradox is, if you look at it in either the one sense or the other, you miss the point. I love stuff like this. Oh, Alan Watts, he's very much worth reading. There were two gentlemen, theologians, Catholic and Protestant, who were dealing with the concept of good and evil, heaven and hell, etc. I'm not going to bother reading their adumbrations here that Watts pursued. I'm just going to give you the conclusion and then his analysis concerning this theme that we would call the ultimate dualism. I'm on pages 163 FF in Alan Watts' magnificent little texts. In attempting a logical justification of the existence of so excruciating a painful, miserable, horrifying hell that is supposed to exist in the same universe that contains the beatific vision of the ultimate soul affirming light, forgiving love itself, the theologians have let slip the inevitable conclusion. And what is that conclusion? It's simply that heaven and hell are polar. And so thereby they are mutually sustaining of each other. The sine qua non of absolute goodness is absolute evil. And neither Bellarmine or Sheben leave room for the least doubt that hell is unqualified, absolute, and unimaginable evil itself. So, if heaven and hell, and thus also the Lord and the devil, are polar, the reality of the two is the unity which lies implicitly between them. So, in this light, the war in heaven begins to look like a conspiracy, an immense cosmic drama, an ultimate big act whereby the universe scares itself stiff just for the thrill of it. For it is as if in the farthest far off beginnings behind the scenes, before the world drama began, that the Lord and the devil had agreed to have a battle, kind of like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Their agreement being their inexpressible, unmanifest, and ineffable unity. So, this is a very interesting take. So, to be an Orthodox Christian, what we do is we enter into an intense adventure. It is comparable to joining in with a gambling game like Russian roulette, where the stakes are life and death. Only here, the stakes are eternal bliss and eternal torture. The issue to be decided irrevocably in one short human life, which may end at any minute. Furthermore, one lives in continual uncertainty as to the outcome because salvation depends upon avoiding the opposing sins of presumption and despair. So, salvation is being sure that one is saved, and the sins of presumption and despair are being sure that one is damned. For once there is a certainty, the essential suspense and the thrill of the gambling game has been destroyed. What is more, it is of the essence of this game that one does not know that it is a game, that the original conspiracy between the Lord and the devil be kept secret. But it's also part of this entire mystique of such games that there are occasional cracks in the wall. There's occasional opportunities to look behind the scenes, as it were, and become disillusioned. So in the traditional Christian world, these opportunities were made all the rarer and thus all the more valuable because the mystic was in constant danger of being accused of heresy. See, just as one must not be certain as to one's eventual salvation or damnation, there must also be doubt as to whether mystical vision is of the Lord or of the devil. Because without doubt, you see, there is no gambling. The guardian of the game's secret, who, when it finally comes down to it, is oneself, will outface you until the very last moment. Let not your left hand know what your right hand doeth. So, if Christ sits at the right hand of God, who sits at the left? To see through the game, then, requires somewhat more heroism than just simply playing the game, than taking quite seriously the stakes of heaven and hell. It involves the risk of the most awful blasphemy, of saying that the Lord and the devil are one. Daemon est Deus inversus. See, the test of heroism in this case is that one must be able to find one's way out of hell from its ultimate bottom, and the clue is given in the concluding canto of Dante's Inferno, interestingly enough. Dante, with his guide, Virgil, has come to the deepest pit of hell, the region where Satan himself sits locked in ice. The way out, down and out, lies through climbing down the back of the fiend himself, first waiting for the moment when his bat-like wings are most widely opened. And I want to read this selection of Dante in the Inferno because so many of us have forgotten the effect of exquisite literature. We're too distracted with the modern foibles of our modern political and economic and spiritless world to really bother gaining a firm and broader understanding of truth and reality through the incredible literatures that we have inherited. And therefore, I want to read this selection. At his command, I clasped him around the neck. He took advantage of the time and the place, and when the wings were opened wide enough, he laid firm hold upon the shaggy flanks. From shag to shag he now went slowly down, between the matted hair and crusts of ice. When we had reached that point, just where the thigh doth turn into the thickness of the haunch, my leader, with fatigue and labored breath, brought round his head to where his legs had been, and grasped the hair like one who clambers up, so that I thought our way lay back to hell. Hold fast, for it is by such stairs as these, my master said to me with panting breath, we must depart from such great wickedness. Now, through a rocky cleft he issued forth, and made me seat myself upon its edge. He then walked carefully up to my side. I raised my eyes, believing I should look on Lucifer as I had seen him last. But lo, I saw his legs were uppermost. And if indeed I then became perplexed, let me be judged in ignorance by those who fail to see what point it was I passed. Rise to your feet, the master said to me. Long is the way and difficult the road. The sun returns already to mid-tierce. It was no palace hallway where we were, but rather a vast dungeon in the rock. Uneven was its floor, and dim the light. Before I turned my steps from the abyss, dear master, I said now that I had risen, say a few words to lead me from my error. Where is the ice? And how is Lucifer thus fastened upside down? How has the sun so quickly moved from evening into morn? And he replied, you still must think yourself beyond the center, where I grasp the hide of that fell worm who perforates the world. You were upon that side when I went down, but when I turned around, we passed the point to which all weights are drawn from everywhere. Now that you have come beneath the hemisphere facing the region where dry land prevails, below whose culminating point was slain the man who lived and died without one sin, your feet now rest upon the little sphere that forms the other aspect of Gaia. Here it is morn, when there the evening falls. And he whose hair has served us for a ladder still remains fixed as he was fixed before. It was upon this side he fell from heaven. The earth, which first projected outward here, for dread of him made of the sea a veil, retreating to your hemisphere. Perhaps the land where we now are, in fear of him, rushed upward to and left this vacant space, a place as distant from Beelzebub as his whole tomb's extent lies here below. It is not known by sight, but by the sound of a small rivulet that there descends along the hollow of a rock carved out by its long twisting course and slight incline. Upon this secret path my guide and I now trod to seek again the world of light, and caring not for rest we mounted upward, he first and I behind, until I saw some of those lovely gems that heaven wears through a round opening far above our heads. Thence we came forth again to see the stars. Now there is something exquisite here, and I really love Alan Watts' elaboration of this. So it's going to be recognized that in Dante's Ptolemaic cosmology, of course, that's the one he had, the bottom of hell is the narrow end of a conical pit reaching to the center of the earth, and that antipodal to this pit is the mountain of purgatory. See, Satan's abode is therefore the very center of the cosmos. It seems then highly probable that the symbolism of the stream and the secret path are initiatic. The stream that is known by sound but not by sight recalls St. Thomas's hymn. Taste and touch and vision to discern thee fail. Faith which comes by hearing pierces through the veil. So, furthermore, the long twisting course of the stream's path is reminiscent of the recurrent theme of the labyrinth. Now, this labyrinth theme is huge in all the ancient mythologies. And it is through the labyrinth that the hero or the neophyte must find his way to freedom. To discover the secret path is to discover that as the center implies the circumference, so hell implies heaven, and Satan implies the Lord. And implication is the unity of opposites. The Roman Catholic liturgy also contains one point at which the veil is lifted, when at the blessing of the Paschal candle on Holy Saturday. Here's what the deacon sings there. O truly necessary sin of Adam, which the death of Christ has blotted out. O happy fault, which merited such and so great a Redeemer. So too, Christ and Satan are at one as the serpent. Satan as the serpent coiled around the tree of knowledge, and Christ as the serpent on the cross, prefigured by the Nehushtan, or the bronze serpent, which Moses lifted up for the healing of a plague of snakes. Jesus himself referenced to that in John 3:14. There is therefore, furthermore, the celebrated legend of the cross, in which it is told that the cross was made from beams which Adam had cut from the tree of knowledge, and so thus making one the tree of salvation and the tree of perdition. Paradise Lost of Dante has also its hint of this fundamental polarity. There is a cave within the mount of God, fast by his throne, where light and darkness in perpetual round lodge and dislodge by turns, which makes through heaven. Grateful vicissitude, like day and night, light issues forth, and at the other door obsequious darkness enters, till her hour to veil the heaven. Though darkness there might well seem twilight here. So, if all of this interpretation is deemed as sophistry, let's consider one more image. The principle of evil is very frequently associated with corruption, that is, with slime, excrement, mud, worms, everything that might be described as goo. One of the common beliefs about Satanism and witchcraft is that it involves transformations of the human form so that it flows from shape to shape, assuming such aspects as one sees in the diabolical figures of Bosch and Bruegel. The only thing to be done with the final stinking green goo, the slime, to which all this leads, is to burn it up. And that leaves us with nice, clean, dry ashes. On the other hand, the principle of goodness is commonly associated with structure, with that which is clear and firm, organized and reliable, crystalline and pure. Goo is the flesh, and structure is the spirit. So, soul, according to Aristotle, is the form of the body, as the corruptible and impermanent matter tends toward goo, but as the perfect and eternal spirit tends toward purely abstract structure. Well, the trouble with pure structure, however, with ashes, bones, crystals, and perfect abstractions, is that it is quite dead. It is not truly spiritual at all because it's completely static and it's comprehensible. On the other hand, the greenest and sloppiest goo, it's a sort of a compost from which living forms will again emerge. The body, just because it is impermanent and corruptible, is the true expression of the spirit. It is allied to the dynamic arts of music and dancing and poetry because it comes and goes like the wind that bloweth where it listeth, and it cannot be trapped in any fixed form. So the romantic will, therefore, tend to favor goo, and the classicist will favor structure. Likewise, mysticism is in the direction of goo, whereas moralism and dogmatism go towards structure. But the obvious truth of the matter is that life is always structured goo or gooey structure. When analyzed to the limit, structures turn out to be random quanta, a sort of electronic goo. Under the microscope, goo is a system of minute and rapidly changing structures. Absolute goo, or absolute structure, would thus be total annihilation. And the same will be true of absolute evil and absolute goodness. These harsh alternatives exist only in the abstract. The real world is actually rather vibration and alternation, the wave that goes up and down at once. In sum, then, the vast metaphysical schism which traditional Christianity proposes is redeemable only if there is a twinkle in the Father's eye comparable to the fear not gesture of Shiva in his dance of world destroying rage. The melodramatic choice between everlasting delight and everlasting torment, as also between taking it seriously or in play, is a test of nerve. There is ample precedent for this kind of thing, however, in Holy Scripture, as witnessed the Lord's command to Abraham to offer up his son Isaac as a sacrifice. Obviously, the Lord calls it off at the last minute when it becomes crystal clear that Abraham is going to go through with it. See, this game involved is a celestial version of chicken. The whole genius of Christianity is that by requiring its followers to accept impossible challenges, it greatly intensifies human consciousness and self-knowledge. The first and greatest commandment, thou shalt love the Lord thy God, is just such an impossible challenge. For a resolute attempt to obey it reveals the illusory nature of our egos or conscious will as the effective agent of such love. You can't command love from an ego stance. in any other deeply spontaneous and creative activity that can't be commanded any more than love can be. And this is the point. It's only by trying to love, or in trying to be humble. I'm humble and I'm very proud of my humility. I'm the most humble man I know. The pride of being so humble. The paradox there is exquisite, right? So it's only by trying to love or to be humble with the devil and all his angels in our hot pursuit of us that we discover the full depth of self-interest and pride involved in the very attempt of loving the Lord your God because you've been commanded to. The injunctions and the prohibitions of Jehovah bear fruit in the subtle wisdom of Freud. This is perhaps why Western drama and fiction from Shakespeare onward display an understanding of human character without any parallel in the literature of the world, because we are actually not just in a drama. We're not just visiting life or in a play. We are the life, and we are the play. And that's the point that our own egos stop us from seeing one of the most exquisite, eye-opening blasphemies from one point of view. Or else it's a completely liberating salvation from another point. That the polarities of God and devil are but a manifestation of the single unity that we actually are. Now, I'll let you think about that, because that's pretty deep. I'll have more for you shortly.